Welcome to this episode of The Story. Subscribe as soon as possible. The Dusk of Atlantis. Chapter 14. Galileo's Spear, the memory resonance of the telescope. In the winter of 1610, the snow in Florence bent the spire of the Memory Cathedral. Galileo Galilei inserted the lens he had polished for 3 months into the telescope tube. As the moonlight passed through the crystal lens, what was reflected in his pupils was not a constellation, but a gear-shaped crack in the star chart, the cosmic truth that only existed in the memory of the Queen of Atlantis. Still observing those blasphemous illusions? The voice of the church spy came from outside the attic window, and the cold light of the memory scythe cut through the snowy night. Galileo quickly covered the telescope with his cloak, but in the reflection of the lens, he saw the star, chart tattoo on the nape of his neck, an imprint left by accidentally touching an Atlantean fragment in the memory graveyard 30 years ago. Aiden's pendant grew hot thousands of miles away, and the blood-written word Delta Omega Giamnu on her hand glowed faintly. In the surveillance footage of the memory graveyard, she saw Galileo's start chart notes, and the coordinates marked in Atlantean script resonated with the No 79 etching at the bottom of her pendant. He discovered the mechanical nature of the star chart. Another feather fell from Raven's scarf, revealing a newly added burn scar. The church's star chart device is actually a huge memory gear, and our consciousness is nothing but the lubricant between the gears. When Aiden's soul traveled into Galileo's perspective, she saw him observing the moons of Jupiter through the telescope. The real starry sky distorted in his vision, turning into the meshing of countless gears, and the constellation memories implanted by the church cracked and peeled off like flaking wall paint. Instinctively, she clenched the pendant, and the Queen's battle memories flooded into her mind. At the core of the Atlantean star chart device was exactly such a gear structure. You are reconstructing reality. Leah de Montfort's memory threads suddenly penetrated the surveillance image. The baby silhouettes at the ends of the threads were particularly glaring in the snow light. The church has spent 1,000 years making humans believe that constellations are the will of God, and you want to help this Italian destroy everything? Aiden forcefully interrupted the soul travel and found herself touching Galileo's memory storage tank in the memory graveyard. Blue tears seeped from the surface of the tank, and the scene of the church's trial emerged. Galileo was tied to the memory resonance device, and the church archbishop was tampering with his memory with a memory scythe. What you will see is not the cracks in the star chart, but God's perfect order. They implanted optic nerve toxins in his memory. Raven pulled up the church files. The memory of Galileo signing the repentance letter is forged. In reality, he wrote the star chart deconstruction equation in Braille during his exile. Aiden activated the judgment mode of the pendant, and the inside of the storage tank projected the real scene. In a small attic in Siena, Galileo wrapped the lens with the hair of his daughter, Virginia. It was a fragment of Atlantean memory crystal that he secretly kept. When the moonlight passed through the lens, the chaotic scene of the real starry sky overlapped with the Atlantean star chart in the Queen's memory. He trembled and wrote on the parchment, "The stars are a puzzle of lies, and the truth is hidden in the rifts behind the constellations." "Look at this!" Raven enlarged the image. There was a wax seal of the Raven totem on the edge of Galileo's manuscript. The Star Guardians once tried to connect him to the memory hearse, but were intercepted by the church's memory plague. The scene jumped to 1633. Galileo knelt in front of the eternal fire in the memory cathedral. His telescope was disassembled, and the lenses were turned into memory fluid in the hands of the church. The star chart tattoo on the nape of his neck was being erased by a memory scythe. Aiden noticed that the archbishop conducting the trial was the same person who had executed Jacques de Molay 300 years ago. The church continued the rule of key members through memory, infusion technology. Admit your heretical memories, or the next one to be harvested will be your daughter's fear. The archbishop's memory threads wrapped around the memory projection of Virginia. She will remember you as a traitor until she is purified into a perfect soul by the church. Galileo's fingernails dug deep into his palm, and the blood drew the Atlantean resistance symbol on the ground. Aiden felt his anger, the same burning sensation that she had when her mother was tortured by the church, spreading from the back of her hand to her heart. The Queen's memory suddenly flooded in. When the church imprisons humanity with perfect order, the imperfect rifts are the entrances to hope. He held up the unconfiscated fragment of the lens. When the moonlight passed through the crystal, it generated a memory resonance, and the real starry sky simultaneously emerged in the minds of the believers present. No constellations, no myths, only countless gears turning in the void, and each gear was engraved with the memory number of the imprisoned. This is the truth you fear. Galileo's roar mixed with the Queen's majesty. The energy ripples caused by the memory resonance shattered the stained glass windows of the church. We are not the chosen ones of God. We are the fuel for the star chart. Aidan returned to reality and found that the same gear patterns as on Galileo's manuscript appeared on the back of her hand. Raven handed her an encrypted file, a fragment of the Prometheus project stolen by the Star Guardians from the church's archives. Memory compatibility test report for clone No. 79. The awakening rate of Atlantean battle memories has increased to 67%. Leah watched the memory fragments of Galileo in the crystal ball at the church headquarters. Her daughter's consciousness cage loomed in the cracks of the star chart. She gently stroked the gear tattoo on her wrist, a control device implanted by the church for the memory senses. When she bit her fingertip and drew the Atlantean destruction rune with blood, the memory thread wings took on their complete form for the first time. No longer baby silhouettes, but countless broken gears. "Mom, what are you doing?" The girl in the cage opened her eyes, and the gear symbol in her pupils began to distort. The purification program requires more fear memories as fuel. "I'm showing you fireworks." Leah's memory threads pierced her own heart, converting her lifelong anger and motherly love into memory energy. Look the truth that the church is most afraid of you knowing. Galileo's memory storage tank suddenly vibrated violently. Aidan saw Leah's figure appear in the picture. She used memory threads to repair the scientist's tampered memory and engrave the coordinates of the star chart core on his retina, while her own body was gradually becoming transparent. "The memory of every rebel is a crack in the star chart," Leah's voice mixed with the beeping of memory resonance. "And your blood is the key to opening the cracks." When the church guards broke into the memory graveyard, Aidan had already disappeared with Galileo's memory fragments. All they saw was a formula written in memory tears on the ground, a resonance frequency calculated using pi and the gear ratio of the star chart. In the memory vault of the Vatican, the Archbishop watched the collapsing sacred memory history in the crystal ball and tremblingly touched the clone number on the nape of his neck. He didn't know that he was just the 47th memory container cultivated by the church. Before his death in exile, Galileo hid the last fragment of the memory crystal in his daughter's dowry. 300 years later, a girl named Aidan Novak would discover it in an antique store in New York. At this moment, the moonlight was passing through the fragment, projecting the same star chart tattoo as Galileo's on the back of her hand. "They think they can control humanity by deleting memories." Raven stroked the feather on his scarf, where the last memory fragment left by his wife was hidden. "But every grain of memory ash may grow into a tree that can destroy the high walls in the future." Aidan put the fragment of Galileo's lens into the memory hearse. Amid the countdown to the millennium, she heard the whisper from that winter night 300 years ago. The stars never arrange themselves according to human memories, just as the truth will never be sewn up by the church's lies. This episode ends here. The next episode will be even more exciting. Come and subscribe.